For 35 years, The Legend of Zelda has been a staple of Nintendo, as well as a staple in the lives of many people, spanning over 3 generations with many more to come. It had a lot of ups and downs, changes that were good and bad, but no matter what, Zelda fans always find themselves eager to continue whatever journey Nintendo has in store for us. My journey began 2 months ago, when I broke my ankle. Laid up in bed all day, I had nothing better to do, so I randomly decided to play through all the major Zelda console releases, as well as the Switch release of Link's Awakening, which maybe I'll save for another video. Now, this wasn't the first time I had played many of these games, but in that time I gained a new perspective and fondness for the series. And also a distaste for a few things, so that was fun. So without further ado, here is my retrospect on all the Zelda console games, except, the shitty CDI ones. That we don't talk about those ones, we just don't.
Squadala, we are off! Wow!
Right off the bat, let's get the first 3 Zelda games out of the way, because people have been talking about them for like 20 plus years, so there really isn't much to say aside from the fact that they are all masterpieces. Yes, all of them. Even 2. Yes, I'm sure. Look, Zelda 2 came out at a time where video game sequels were still kind of new, and developers were like, well, we can't just keep making the same game again, and again, and again, and again, and you get where I'm going with this. This is why Mario Bros. 2 looks drastically different in the US than its Japanese counterpart, because the video game industry used to have standards instead of whatever the fuck they're doing now. Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, took standard RPG elements of the time and applied it to Zelda for really the first time ever, and this will forever play a giant role in the future games. Plus the soundtrack is pure air orgasm. Listen to this shit. On top of that, it gave us the introduction of Shadow Link, and honestly, who doesn't love Shadow Link? To this day, he still finds a way to appear in the games. So yeah, Zelda 2 is weird, but after beating it, I don't know, I found a newfound appreciation for it. And that's why, to me, it can hold its ranking alongside Legend of Zelda and A Link to the Past as being a straight-up masterpiece. These are games that manage to capture the spirit and wonder of adventure. Games that you could spend endless hours playing, even if your goal isn't to finish them. They each bring a unique and fun change to the genre that was welcomed with each installment and will continue to be loved by many for the rest of time. And then Ocarina of Time came out. Now, before you jump down my throat, let me just get this out of the way. Ocarina of Time is without a doubt one of the best Zelda installments to ever come out. Many who grew up with this game consider it to be a masterpiece, and I would say for most part, I agree with them. Until a few years ago, I actually considered it to be the best Zelda game to ever come out. But I'm gonna need you all to set the nostalgia aside and hear me out on this. And also, just to throw this out there, Egoraptor did an in-depth analysis on Ocarina vs. A Link to the Past for his Sequelitis series, and it's pretty spot on, so go check that shit out. Not that, you really needed me to tell you that. But there was one thing that I never quite agreed with him on until my current Zelda binge.
The source of a lot of Ocarina's problems is that the game's idea of difficulty is waiting. There is so much goddamn waiting.
The first time I saw this, I kind of just chalked it up to him being an impatient person, but having played through the games in order, I kind of get what he means now. In the first 3 Zelda games, things happen quick, probably because there wasn't enough space for long cutscenes and the attention span for kids is non-existent. Just a quick da-da-da-da, and you're on your way. But with Ocarina of Time, I can kind of give this a pass for the sheer fact that at the time this was all new. Ocarina of Time came out less than 2 years after the N64, and so it still had a lot of explaining to do. Not only because the N64 was this revolutionary console that was introducing the entire gaming world to industry-changing concepts, but also because Nintendo knew it would be the first game that many people played on the system, and therefore it worked as sort of a template to teach us when we played future games, much like Mario 64 did. But yeah, it's still tedious, and now I get why going back to it after getting instant satisfaction for the first 3 games makes it seem worse than it is. Plus, the N64 controller is complete trash and the console doesn't hold up anymore, making the most games on it now a frustrating chore that is complete devoid of any fun! But, whatever. Ocarina, of course, was a huge hit. It gave us many memorable moments, an amazing story, and once again captured the sense of adventure the previous games did with amazing 3D graphics. For the time. If given the chance, I would totally recommend it to anyone, but add that they should probably play it on the 3DS remake to offset some of the garbage N64 controls. As a matter of fact, the only real downfall to Ocarina was that it was too good. Like too damn good. Ocarina was such an amazing game that it cemented its place in what a quote-unquote Zelda game should be, and in turn launched a new era of Zelda, which I will be dubbing the Ocarina wannabes, which sounds more negative than it is. In fairness, some of these games are pretty damn good, but playing them directly one after another will definitely wear you down. To start us all off, let's talk about Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask... how do I put this? Majora's Mask can suck every dick in the multiverse. This game is the fucking worst. And I know it has its diehard fans, but fuck you, let's talk about this. This game is where we can pinpoint where Zelda went wrong. Because if you thought that things in Ocarina were tedious, well, welcome to Tedious the Game. I fucking loathe this game. I would rather play a Zelda CDI game than this shit. I hate this game so much that I went out of my way to do a 100% run of it, which I only save for games that I never want to play ever again. And you know what kills me the most about this game? Is that people will praise and defend it, and then complain about the tediousness of the water temple from Ocarina. Majora is one long fucking water temple. Put on the boots, take off the boots, raise the water, lower the water is the same as put on the mask, take off the mask, reset the days, talk to these two people, reset the days, reset the days, reset the days, reset the days. It's a fucking boring mess. And it looks like shit. Next up is Wind Waker. I was actually hesitant to include Wind Waker as part of the Ocarina wannabe list, but at its core it really is. Especially if tediousness is a factor in these games, because having to hunt down those Triforce pieces can suck all the dicks that Majora's does. The first time I played this game, I actually got stuck trying to find one piece to the point that I broke down and bought a game guide, which I still have to this day. I remember the first thing I ever heard about this game was, why the fuck does it look like that? I'm not playing this shit! Which was, a dumb reason to not play this totally amazing game. And besides that, I think the graphics are kinda cute, and were a nice change of pace from the muddy horseshit that Majora's gave us. This is also when the combat in Zelda started to get interesting by establishing things like quick time attacks and an actual free-flowing camera. Plus it had the cutest Koraks that I have ever seen. The sailing aspect of this game kinda slowed it down though. Like, literally, that boat was slow as fuck. But if you get the HD remaster they released on the Wii U, they actually fixed it with an addition of a faster sail. But even still, it throws off the pacing. Like, even if you get the Cyclone Warp, you will find yourself having a lot of downtime while playing this game. So why not watch a certain streamer on Twitch while you play? Shameless self-promotion check. On a final note, the story in Wind Waker is fantastic, holding up that sense of adventure as well as introducing more lore into the series, which, as a history fan, is always welcome, so definitely give this one a play, even if you don't like how it looks. Next up on my journey is the highly loved and cherished Twilight Princess. It's alright. No, but really, I'm not sure what it was about this game, but it just didn't hit me the same way the other Zelda games did. This was my first time I ever played this one, and in fairness, you know, I wasn't sleeping well when I played this, plus at this point I'd been playing a lot of Zelda for almost 2 months, but even still, it just failed to strike a chord with me. A lot of the time I kept thinking, I bet this is what they envisioned Ocarina to be if they could have had the capabilities back then. But to be honest, I think this one fell short in a lot of places. It didn't bring an ounce of innovation to it. It just felt like Ocarina with great graphics and a wolf feature. Like, whoopee. There were clear attempts to add things to it, like the unlockable combat moves, but they were optional, which means that nothing is catered to them, and enemies could be defeated without using them. On top of that, they brought back the music aspect for the 4th fucking time in the form of wolf howls, and just recycled music from the past games. As stated before, this game looks great. I played the HD remake they released on the Wii U, and the visuals were stunning at times. Although, and I don't know if this was just a problem I had or if it was the remake, but there were constant frame drops when too many things were on screen. But even for all its stunning visuals, this game just feels empty. And I don't mean in like a metaphorical sense, I mean this game is super empty. Just large fields and deserts of nothing that most of the time you don't even go to because you end up warping everywhere anyways. And I think that may be why this game falls so flat for me. It has no sense of adventure. As much as I shit on Majoras, that game still manages to capture that sense of adventure, albeit in an annoyingly frustrating way. But Twilight Princess gave me no incentive to go out and explore the world outside of doing stupid shit like collecting bugs or finding easily defeatable pose or fucking stamps that no one... Who looked at the damn stamps? Even the task of discovering what you have to do next in the game, which in past installments meant exploring and talking to interesting and fun characters, was boiled down to just going to a bar and asking the same 3 people what to do. It's just a hollow, empty game with great graphics and an average story that underutilized mechanics that could have made it challenging and fun. A simple fix to this would have been making the unlockable combat moves mandatory and making enemies that could only be defeated by said moves. It would have added a layer of strategy to each fight as you try to find an effective way to defeat different enemies. And this would have incentivized you to go out and explore the world to find these moves. Who knows? Maybe I should give this one a replay down the road, but it just seems unlikely. It just does nothing for me as a game. That's why it's just good. It's not bad, it's not great. It's just average. Now on to Skyward Sword, another game that I'm playing for the first time. At the time I was writing this, I was actually still playing the Switch release of Skyward Sword. For years I heard this game is either really good or just utter shit, so I was kinda interested to find out. And at first glance it was interesting, but as I got further into the game I actually kinda liked it. Don't get me wrong, there are things about this game that sucked, and when it sucks, it sucks. And we'll get into that, but overall I found this to be a pretty good game. Graphically, this game blended the cutesy look of Wind Waker with the standard Zelda look of Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess, and I loved and hated it. Like, Zelda and Link looked cute together, but then there was shit like this. Like what the fuck even is this? And I'm asking that after seeing shit like this in the last game. Story-wise, Skyward Sword weirdly reminds me of a shonen anime. When it's time to get serious, it's serious. But there's also this layer of levity found in goofy character interactions, and an over-the-top villain. For some, this may be a turnoff, but I eat this shit up. Especially a laughably over-the-top character. I really liked how this game gave Zelda a bigger role than just the damsel, something we hadn't really seen since Ocarina. I actually would have loved to have seen a spin-off or some DLC where we followed her and Impa's story. And to top it all off, this game canonically takes place at the beginning of the timeline, which means it oozes with lore, which, as I stated before, that's my shit. I love that shit. But you really can't talk about this game without talking about 2 things in particular. The first is for sure the controls. Playing this as a regular game on the Switch seemed kinda out of place. It goes heavy on the motion controls, which would have been fine, but they give you the option to play it as a regular game and then just use that as an opportunity to simulate more motion controls. Which honestly, playing either way felt like it only worked like 60 to 70% of the time when you were swinging the sword. And that can make fighting some enemies a fucking chore. The second thing is the inclusion of the character Fi. Fi? Faux thumb? I don't give a fuck enough to look it up. I know that I've gotten through almost all of the Ocarina wannabe games without talking about their helper characters, but this is the first time that is a genuine problem. With other games, the helpers mostly stay in the background, even when they play pivotal roles in the story, such as Midna. But Fi decided to hold your hand the whole fucking time. You'll just be exploring a dungeon or walking around, and all of a sudden she will pop up with a whoop whoop. Want to know how to wipe your own ass? She destroys any pacing this game has. Her constant interruptions to give you math statistics doesn't make me feel like I'm playing a Zelda game. It makes me feel like I'm sitting in Miss Noun's 5th grade math class. And worst of all, Fi and her Douse ability completely ruins your need to explore the world, which is the one thing about these games I won't shut the fuck up about. Skyward Sword ends up suffering from the opposite of Twilight Princess, in that there is too much innovation. It strays far off the path, which normally wouldn't be a bad thing, but it does it in a cheap, annoying, and repetitive way that removes you from any immersion, such as giving you the same boss battle 3 times, or having to do the collectathons of tears, or notes, or whatever stupid shit that you don't want to do. Which is almost a shame because this game actually has a lot of good things going for it. The dungeons are a bit short, but the atmosphere of each one will suck you in. The puzzles that they used made it feel like a Zelda game again. Throw these on top of an entertaining story, and it could have been top tier. They just need to fix the motion controls and maybe downplay Fee a lot. Last up on the list is without a doubt my favorite Zelda game to ever come out, Breath of the Wild. I need you all to understand that this is the best Zelda game. It encapsulates everything we love about a Zelda game, from its sense of adventure and exploration, to its lovable cast of characters and exceptional story. If it's not perfect, then it's damn near close to it. And to top it all off, it finally ended that fucking Ocarina wannabe streak, and has ushered us into the next evolution of Zelda games. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I think the initial backlash of Skyward Sword paved the way for this game. I think Nintendo took a long look at itself and decided it needed to change the mold, and holy shit, did they change it. On some things, they went back to the basics, and it worked well in their favor. Combat, for instance, is back to its usual hack and slash mechanic. Between the motion controls, or even the silly joystick slashing of Skyward Sword, I think this was a much needed return to form. It worked for the first 6 games, so don't fix what isn't broken. This game also is without a doubt the biggest representation of RPG that I personally have ever played. Want to go straight to Ganon with 3 hearts and shit weapons? You'll probably get your shit rocked, but you can do it. Want to hit up the shrines, help establish a new town, or even unlock a motorcycle? Go for it! It's a game where you can put as much or as little into it as you see fit. You don't even need to get the Master Sword if you don't want to. A piece of Zelda that has been mandatory since A Link to the Past. On top of all that, they added a whole collection of upgradable clothing, a slew of different weapons for you to try your hand at, and if that wasn't enough, they added several ruins that will help you navigate and fight your way through this game. Breath of the Wild has made it so Zelda is no longer a linear game, where you collect items within a dungeon and fight easily defeatable monsters with said items. Instead, you have to use strategy and cunning to defeat the bosses, and you can do so at your own pace and leisure. The one complaint I have heard about this game is that it can be tedious like past installments, but that's just the thing. This game doesn't make you do anything you don't want to. There are 900 Korok seeds in this game. You don't need to collect even a tenth of those, if you don't want to. 120 shrines, you could get by with less than half of those, though you'd be missing out on some awesome puzzles. I've played this game several times, and it wasn't until I finished it this playthrough that I realized I only ever beat it twice. Not because I got bored of it or gave up, but rather because of a whole different reason. Breath of the Wild succeeds where most modern games fail. You see, most games today are about reaching that end goal, defeating the final boss, saving the world or princess or whatever, but Breath of the Wild is without a doubt a game that's about the journey and not the destination. It's about stopping to sniff the flowers and shank an enemy or two. You'll never find yourself sitting around bored waiting for the next thing to happen, because this is the event. You're experiencing it all at once, no matter what you're doing in this game. So beat Ganon, don't beat Ganon, it doesn't matter. Just enjoy it. I have played every console Zelda game at this point, as well as most of the handheld ones. And looking at Breath of the Wild, it's like this is what we've been building towards all these years. Nintendo took all these pieces of things that we loved from each game and had an orgy with them. And the result was so amazing that I'm genuinely excited to see where they take us next with Breath of the Wild 2. Provided they don't fuck it up like Majoras. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to me rant about all these Zelda games. I don't usually make videos like this, but here we are. Hope to hear what you all think, and if you enjoyed this video, maybe I'll make another. But you can always catch me streaming on Twitch, so maybe check that link in the description, huh? Thanks again, everybody.